there's one clear controversial figure in this movie, and
that is the banana girl.
The banana girl. Where does she come from? What's her life story? Why is she eating that banana on the side of the road? Why did Jason so violently kill her, stabbing her through the throat?
To be fair, it wasn't Jason.
Don't say Predator.
No, it wasn't Predator either. It was Tom Savini.
Tom Savini?
Tom Savini really hated phallic fruits.
He got bored on his lunch break and decided just to stab this girl in the throat with the banana.
Yes, it's actually a snuff film.
Let's talk about one Rob. Nick, what's his last name?
I don't know his last freaking name.
Did they give us a last name for Rob ever?
Oh, what was Sandra's last name?
Oh, Rob, older brother of Sandra from Part 2, which we don't know what his last name is at all.
Okay, so Sandra's last name is nothing, apparently.
Sandra has no last name.
Sandra has no last name.
So Rob doesn't have a last name either.
Nope.
But they are brother and sister.
Yes.
And young Sandra has been perished and killed and murdered at the hands of one Jason Voorhees. And now his Rob, because he's feeling very vindicated with a revenge motif.
What's with your voice right now?
He has a revenge motif. He's motivated to kill. All right, so
I didn't even do any of that with a straight face.
All right, let's take a step back for that. We have to establish a timeline here, okay? It does, and I appreciate it picks up right when Part 3 leaves off. Part 2 and 3 and 4 all basically within a couple of days. The controversy has always been if Rob's little sister Sandra died in Part 2,
yes,
is there enough time for him to be a couple of days later in the woods hunting Jason with very confident information that Jason's out here? Is it enough time? Because let's be honest, after your sister dies, there's a grieving period.
yes,
There'd probably be a funeral.
yes.
And you'd have to take some time to comfort your parents too.
Nah.
Okay, well, a good child would probably comfort the parents.
No, a better child. So a good child would comfort their parents.
Yes.
A better child will go out there, find the jackass that killed your sister, and put him to the knife as well.
So you're saying the day after she died at the funeral, Rob approached his parents and said, Mom, Dad, anything I can do for you to help you during this process. And the dad said, one thing you can do for me, son, go find the son of a bitch who did this.
Yes.
And bring me back his head.
Yes.
And young Rob loaded up with a gun,
Yes.
a knife,
Yes.
a tool belt.
Yes.
Off to the woods he goes.
Yes. And don't forget his backpack.
His backpack. His tent too.
Because he's fully camping.
Okay, well.
He says he's hunting bear.
This Adventures of Rob movie is going to be very interesting to see if he can find Jason and take out his revenge.
So, to be fair, you said if we're going off of a couple of days, there wouldn't have been a funeral within 3-day time.
True.
Usually takes about a week to get a funeral going.
So this is where it gets interesting because some fans theorize there's a lot of talk now about, back in the day it was established this was all 3 days, but now there's also a lot of talk about, is there a time jump in this movie? And the only place where that could be theoretically is when Jason escapes from the hospital.
Yes.
We cut to a daytime scenery,
Yes.
and he kills Banana Girl.
Yeah. No, Tom Savini killed her. Jason's not even there yet.
Okay, well, Jason, though, is back in the woods at Crystal Lake.
Yes.
So Jason is back at Crystal Lake from the hospital. We're assuming he didn't take a car ride. He actually walked back to Crystal Lake.
Yes.
There's a couple questions. One thing is, how long would it have taken him to get from the hospital back to Crystal Lake on foot?
So I'm assuming there's no hospital in this town because we've seen this town at least 2 or 3 times now. There is no hospital anywhere in this town. So I'm assuming they had to take him over to the next town.
Maybe at most, though, 20, 30 miles away.
For if you're walking 20, 30 miles is a pain in the ass and feet.
And we're assuming Jason doesn't yet have teleportation abilities here. We're going to say he actually walked.
Allegedly.
Okay. So it would have taken at least a couple days for Jason to get back?
I'd say so because he has to stop to eat. He has to sleep.
And
we're still assuming he's human.
When we say stop to eat, we mean actually like hunt some kind of animal in the woods.
Yep.
Okay.
Or maybe, what we find out later, those 2 did go missing. Maybe Jason became a cannibal long enough.
It would have really helped us if that right there in that daytime scene, they put a little graphic that said 1 week later. Would have solved a lot of problems.
Right.
Instead, we have to guess here.
Yes.
One hint of how soon this was is that Mrs. Jarvis she's reading a newspaper that's talking about the hospital killings. Mm-hmm. So it can't be that much. It probably a couple of days later because it's in the newspaper, but it can't be that much further down the line because why would she have the newspaper article about it? It's still kind of fresh, so it's got to be within a week. So we'll say somewhere...
Or at least 2 days.
At least 2 days. And that goes with Jason walking back to the lake, stopping off at Denny's on the way there, killing a few hitchhikers.
Yep, eating them.
Eating their brains.
Why would he eat brains?
Maybe he's a zombie too. So.
No, he's busy eating the meaty, fatty parts of the body.
Oh, disgusting. Does he at least get some Chick-fil-A sauce?
Of course.
Okay, then it's okay.
Was Chick-fil-A even around at the time?
Probably not. So maybe it was just honey mustard back then.
Well.
All right. Well, okay. So, all right. So we're gonna say benefit of the doubt. Somewhere within a week's period, this happens later. But it's at least a couple of days.
Yes.
Enough time at least for there to be a funeral and for Papa Rob to be like, "Go get the son of a bitch."
Yes.
And now Rob is off.
Rob is off. Rob has his Back in Black music playing. He's in his Impala, a suitcase in the back full of weaponry. He's ready.
And now, in terms of what he knows about Jason, we had to study one specific scene to get to the bottom of this mystery, and it's a scene where Rob is confronted by Trish in a tent in the rain.
And he tries to kill Trish while also making sure he has nowhere to sleep if everything goes sideways.
Well, we didn't say Rob was a great planner. Okay, now, Rob's evidence of Jason. He has an article with him with a sketch drawing of child Jason.
Yes.
As he describes as a sketch made from a would-be victim.
Yes.
Now, at this point in the series, we have 3 would have been would-be victims, which was Alice from part 1, Ginny from part 2, and Chris from part 3. Mm-hmm. Chris, we know, unfortunately, has gone insane.
Yes.
So she was
already insane, but yeah.
Well, I mean, now she's really insane. So we eliminate her, basically.
Yes.
Ginny probably is still in the area, probably at the hospital, or if it is like a week later, maybe she's gone back to where she came from.
No, Ginny went back home. She said, "Fuck this place."
Ginny gone.
Ginny gone. She did a smart thing.
She went to go find Paul herself.
Yep.
He's out there in the woods somewhere. I want to find Paul myself.
That's why we never see her again. Jason got her, and we just don't know it.
And if she found Paul, now she's trying to find Muffins the dog. So to no avail, of course, because Muffin's dead.
No, Muffin ain't dead.
Because Jason ate him. Oh, okay.
Then Jason ate Ginny.
What? Okay.
Which I'm sure a lot of weirdos want to see that. Never mind, I'm taking that back.
Yeah, that kind of makes you the weirdo, actually. I think you want to
I am the weirdo. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. Now, Ginny probably gone. But between the two, we have Ginny and Alice.
Yes.
Now, it's a sketch. The key thing is it's a sketch drawing of child Jason.
Child Jason, and the newspaper article says 7 people slain by a woman. It says W. They don't show it. So at first I thought it read Woodsman until
maybe so.
I looked it up on the Dead Meat Wiki, where it is determined that besides those first 2 deaths that happened, 5 years before the first movie even?
So it says 7 victims.
Yes.
So we had to look up essentially which movie actually has 7 victims, because if that's part 2, it's going to have 7 victims, and it is Ginny that for some reason drew the sketch child Jason. Mm-hmm. But we found out part 2 has about 9 or 10 victims, depending
if you count Paul.
If you count Paul. Now, part 1 also lists 9 victims. However, when we think about it, the beginning of part 1 has 2 victims killed years before by Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
In the intro of part 1. Take those away. Part 1 has 7 victims.
Yep.
Which goes with the article, which means Alice, sometime between the end of part 1 and when
she dies
in part 2, went to the newspaper and done a sketch drawing of child Jason.
Yep. And seeing as how they're still saying would be, could mean one of 2 things. Either no one has still found Alice's body in that shack, or they all actually think she's just alive, just disappeared.
Well, no, but think about this, though. This article probably came out back then when she was alive. Mm-hmm. So would-be victim, they're talking about Alice literally a month after the events of part 1, she could have went to the newspaper, did this article. This is an old article. So Rob found an old article that's telling him about the events of part 1. He sees child Jason. Now, the article is like 5 years old, so maybe went to his local library. So he's going by that. Okay, there's a child Jason. 7 people died, but those 7 people were killed by Mrs. Voorhees, of course. Mm-hmm. But he says the words, and then the murders.
Yeah.
And now he's talking about the part 2 and 3 murders.
Yes. Which leads me to believe one little detail. If this takes place only like 1 or 2 days after the part 3,
and most a week.
Well, I'm leaving the week part out. If it's taking place not even barely a day after,
yeah,
he has to be a cop, because there's no way he can get this kind of information as a person at this day and age outside of police investigation means.
If he was a cop, it would actually make more sense in terms of him actually feeling like, hey, I can go get this guy. I don't know if I see it.
I mean, most cops would understand that if someone pins you up against the wall, it's best to knee them in the damn nuts.
Yeah, I think if Rob was a cop, I think that him, when he sees Jason, because he does see someone messing with his tent. And at that point, I guess he's thinking that's probably Jason.
Yes.
I think he would have some means to call for backup or something.
Hell no. If he's there, because technically if he's investigating his sister's death, he would be off that case immediately. He would be forced off the force if they found out he was even anywhere near the case.
So it's a rogue mission.
Yes.
The other thing that I always was troubled by was the idea of, if Jason escaped from the hospital and he's out there, why is everybody in part 4 not alarmed about Jason?
Because they all think he's dead.
They think he's dead, and then not only that, Rob, of course, doesn't believe that. So he tells Trish, he's like, the killer's still alive. And she's like, he's dead. And he's like, to be fair, he's like, no, the body went missing from the hospital. And she's like, it was stolen. So what everybody seems to think, what the newspapers are saying, and what the idea in Crystal Lake at this time is that Jason's body has been stolen from the hospital. Not only that, but it makes sense that the 2 victims from the hospital, they think that maybe they stole the body. But Rob's not buying any of this because he, of course, is psychic, and he's like, nope, Jason himself escaped. He's here. I'm here to kill him.
I mean, at the same time, he's also still fighting a form of grief with the fact that his sister's passed away. So yes. I can still understand that he wants something or someone to punish.
Yes.
And technically he has that. He just does. He's just, in a sense, ill-informed.
Ill-informed and ill-prepared, because when he finally confronts Jason
throws him like a rag doll and kills him.
And Rob is more concerned with telling people that he's dying, making sure the word is out in the streets.
That he's
killing me! He's killing me! Run, Trish! And unfortunately, that's a very bad end for the character.
He should have fought back.
Who did so much research. I don't think he's a cop person. I think he just went to the local library, put together a big conspiracy there in his mind. It just happened to be correct that it actually was all Jason.
I thought you always hated those kind of coincidences.
Yeah, but now that I see that he's going mostly off of part 1's events, and that's 5 years ago, now it kind of makes sense to me that the only thing I got to say, though, is that in terms of the funeral and stuff, it still has to be a week later, because I don't think within 2 days he's in the woods. I think it's got to be a week later.
I mean, did he even say there was a funeral for his sister yet?
I just don't think that before the funeral, he's out here in the woods.
I would.
I don't.
You don't want the trail going cold.
Yeah, but I guess maybe.
But then again, I would also knee Jason in the nuts when he tackles me against the damn wall, or at least before Jason grabs the garden hoe that he uses to stab me with. No, I'd grab that and start stabbing him with it while screaming at Trish, "Get the fuck out of here!"
But here's the thing here's the problem with the whole it being 2 days later. He would have to know the body was gone from the morgue before he even made the plan, or even thought anything was off, because when he finds out his sister's dead, the word is basically that Jason's dead. Yeah. So once he finds out the body's been stolen, at that point is when he starts to be like, okay, let me research this, and then he finds the child sketch and all that stuff. So I just feel like there's got to be a couple days there in between. There's no way the next day he's already found this out, already doing the research, everything. There's no way. But if it's a week later, it all makes sense. Even 3 or 4 days later.
Fair.
So that's for everybody who feels like there's no way that Rob can reality be. Now I think it is still pretty cuckoo. I mean, the odds of him actually being there in the woods, even a couple days later, a week later, to do what? To hunt somebody that you don't even know what their capabilities are?
Yes.
Like, I don't think he's a cop. He's clearly a hunter, I think.
He's not even a hunter.
It's very poor.
I'm sorry, a hunter. When he first left that tent and Jason went to his tent and broke his gun.
Yep.
Which is also why I still say the father from part 3 shot Jason. He knows what power guns can do, so he got rid of that. But at the end of the day, he would have taken his gun with him if he was a hunter. Not went out there with a freaking machete.
Yeah. If at your arsenal you have, a gun, a machete, especially a cop, this is why it really doesn't seem like it's a cop. The cop would definitely have the gun and not the, I'm going to get him with my machete.
Yeah, the machete should have only been his hand tool if needed. Like to cut something down or he lost the gun.
And by the way, he brings the one weapon that Jason's like, ooh, my favorite weapon. I can use this for the rest of the movie. Come on, really?
I don't even think Jason uses it.
Yeah, he does. The machete, after that, he takes the machete back. That's when he takes out Crispin Glover, machete to the face. And remember the whole ending with he's attacking Trish with a machete. That's the whole ending. So Rob, not only did Rob fail in his mission to avenge his sister.
How did Jason get the machete to kill Crispin Glover when Crispin Glover's death happens before Rob's death?
No. He got the machete from, oh, damn. So actually, Jason has 2 machetes.
Jason can dual wield.
I guess you're right, yeah. So they both have machetes, right?
Yeah.
Because Jason has the machete all throughout then, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's weird.
Even though I think he only used it for technically 2 scenes because he used a knife on the friend, on Teddy.
Yeah.
And he threw one girl out the window and used a spear for another girl.
Yeah, and then the whole end sequence, he's chasing them with the machete, but
yeah,
you're right. He didn't necessarily get that from Rob. Although, I mean,
I don't even
it makes it look like, though, because the whole thing is Rob dropped the machete down into the basement. And then he goes to get his machete, but Jason doesn't even use the machete to kill him. He picks a little...
like a little garden hoe. Or garden... What was it? Like the 3 spike thingy.
It really feels like Rob didn't even try to fight back.
He didn't. I'm sorry. If he did, there what? Like I said, Rob should have been
he's a big enough guy. Here's the fail of Rob. This is the same Jason that we saw Paul physically fight Jason in part 2 and actually make Jason struggle. Rob in the same situation just gives up against the wall.
Well, to be fair, also, this is the same Jason that also picks up Rick, who's bigger than both Paul and Rob.
But you know what makes me, when I think about now, we think about the idea of him picking up the guard hose. So he's restraining Rob with one arm and using the hose with the other hand. Well, so all you have to do with all your strength is push somebody off that has one hand against you.
Be fair, it looked more like Jason was on top of him with his whole weight.
Against the wall?
Yeah.
But there's a separation because he has to wind back the garden hose though, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, he has him up against the wall, grabs it, pushes, stabs. Before it all takes within 1 second.
I have to go back and watch it because I think there's a he's not like on him physically. It seems like there's a space there, so I don't know, maybe.
I mean, if I was Jason, this guy was about the same height as me.
Like they're not.
Yeah, I'm using my body
like
on him.
They're not hugging. Like I said, he has enough space to bring down the thing onto him. So they're not like on a hugging posture.
No, they're hugging.
then he would be stabbing his shoulder or his back then.
No, that's
right. It would come down his back.
And then after he grabs the weapon, he pushes off, stabs. It only takes 1 second.
For you folks down in the comments, tell us your theories about Rob. I find him to be, although ultimately a useless but interesting character because his background and what he was trying to do was very interesting. He tried to be a Creighton Duke, but he ended up being just dead Rob. What happened to the dog that jumped out the window?
The dog jumped out the window and ran.
Where?
To
Higgins Haven? That dog is dead.
The dog is not dead. He ran. He said, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Okay.
Never seen him again.
Is he the smartest dog of all time?
Yes.
He sensed danger, but instead of staying there to protect the human master, he jumps out the window and is like, I'm out.
Yeah. This dog was most likely raised to never attack a human. So when he sees one human attacking another human, he's like, well, I can't do anything. Bye.
Smart dog. That's it for this week's episode. Down in the comments, let us know, what do you think happened to Rob? And next week, we're back with another episode of the Theories of Friday the 13th. Ah!